Good morning, everyone. I'm Xavier Henriquel, safety assessment expert and flight control specialist in EASA. I joined in 2016 after working for a couple of years in the industry as an aircraft manufacturer and for a fly-by-wire system supplier. So, as you may imagine, when I joined, I was quite interested because in simulation, because in my previous job we were providing a flight control system for Embraer, as well as the integrated system test bench, which has advanced simulation capability. And joining the agency, one of the first things I looked at is how this topic was managed in general during certification exercise. And I was given over the last 5-6 years several occasions to steer the effort with regard to the use of simulation in certification projects. The use of simulation in EASA involves many specialties, from flight test pilots, human factor specialists, to system experts like myself in flight control domain, or also some specialists in the process evaluation, like DOA team leader or process assurance specialists. And so there's various needs within the agency, and some coordination between ourselves is being performed on each and every project. So when it came to produce some means of compliance for the first eVTOL to support the use of simulation, I was lucky enough to be appointed with this task, and I'm going to present to you where we are and where we are. Just maybe two clarifications before we start. This presentation is about eVTOL system requirement compliance demonstration. Two words are important here. eVTOL. The future guidance today is available for eVTOL, but the consideration given there can be generalized with some limitation to other products. Quite a bit on that. Systems. It's really oriented towards system requirement compliance demonstration. Later on today, my colleagues Wim Doland and Laurent Pinsard have also prepared some detailed presentation for structural aspects. Here it's more system part. Yeah. So I will make a short introduction to clarify some concepts and the reason why we are also interested in simulation. Hopefully, it will not differ too much from what Stefan and Andrea have already highlighted. Then I will elaborate a bit on what are EASA concerns in general on various projects we've seen and what are the questions we've received from the industry, which has been an input for us to prepare this means of compliance for VTOL. I will then debrief you, give a short debrief on the public consultation process that is ongoing on this particular means of compliance, and give you some insight on where we are in. So just to make sure we are all on the same page, in this presentation and in the means of compliance, simulation and test rig are used as per this definition. A simulation is a mean with a pilot in the loop. For comfort is a pilot here. And it's what we call a Mock 8 in part 21 in the guidance material. Test rig is a laboratory test bench, what we call a Mock 4. Both simulation and test rig may be using the real hardware or models or combination of. And the last notion I want to introduce is related to automatic batch testing because the guidance material is in this particular. To the fact that for advanced simulator or integrated test bench, we often have this capability to launch scripted tests in a batch sequence so that for a couple of hours or even days, non-regression tests can be run in an automated manner. And this comes with a great benefit because the regression tests can be but also particular consideration to have such an approach. With this in place, the use of simulation is certainly not new to aerospace. I pick up some old photos from NASA websites that are in the public domain. So we are here looking at some test rig from the 70s for transmission test transmission and on the X15 simulator facilities. So this has been largely used so far for design purposes, for integration purposes, and more people want to use it for simulator, and it's actually allowed by the rule. It can be used to support handling qualities, human factor assessments, performances, and also compliance and requirements for flight to use simulation. This is discussed with the authority during a certification plan review when means of compliance are being before going to the challenges, I will sum up some benefits, and you've already been there. I have 4 of them, but I have a slightly different perspective, so I will not highlight the cost benefit. Andrea and Stefan already mentioned that in blue, it's a good way to assess failure case, but are otherwise impractical, and I really support the so I'll avoid too much on that. It's giving the capability to test complex failure scenario. Especially when it comes to highly complex system, it's giving us the capability also to see how failure are propagating. Traditional testing means are usually quite efficient. There's a lot of function, but when it comes to more elaborate malfunctions or erroneous operation and how it cascades the system, integrated test bench with simulation capability are quite good. Flexibility, I guess it was also well explained before, but it's slightly beneficial to be able to change parameters. Performances are affected much easier than when you do it real hardware. And the last benefit that we see that's quite important is that it allows to validate earlier the definition and the integration, from earlier integration of the system component, improving the DND process part of the So coming now to the challenges or the point of interest. First, starting with some basic or some less technical aspects of what was presented before, but also quite important, because in practice, there are also challenges we are seeing. We are facing from time to time configuration control issue up to the point where we are presented with some situation where the configuration control, the simulation environment is almost non-existing, which is really a problem if you do simulation result for certification exercise. And this is the extreme case. What is a bit more subtle, but also a situation that we face from time to time, is that when it comes to complex simulation means, quite often some suppliers are involved. Flight control system suppliers may provide the applicant with some models for the flight control component, which have their own limitation, because for this model to run on a real-time platform, they are usually low fidelity. So the supplier normally is delivering models with a list of limitations that needs then to be assessed by the aircraft manufacturer or the other part. Sure that these limitations are compatible with an important aspect. And then with regard to configuration control, well, we have the challenges of keeping the simulation means and the system of interest, the aircraft, coherent together, because both may evolve. Simulation means are often designed earlier in the program, and they include some physical, simulate some physical characteristics such as inertia, quite difficult to change late in the program. And on the other side, the aircraft may evolve during the design phase, and we want to understand throughout the type certificate exercise, or we want to be sure that simulator and aircraft are kept in tune. And yeah, the ultimate goal of configuration control is to ensure the repeatability of the test. Quickly on the second aspect, what is important for us in this overarching guidance 25 OOB And where we are insisting a bit is to make sure that test rig are identified early enough in the process so that we can start the discussion as soon as possible. These kind of means have their own life throughout the program. A program may last 40, 50 years, and benches or simulator are expensive capability that can be decommissioned for various reasons. This can happen, but we need to be made aware earlier enough and not discover it in the final weeks of certification exercise. Because otherwise, this happens from time to time, and this leads to interesting discussion. Automatic testing, this is what I was defining before. The challenges we have with this capability, which is useful for non-regression testing, there is no doubt about it, is that we've seen some configuration where human supervision was quite limited, and people were basically launching a 2 days test sequence that was developed with limited configuration using tools that were considered outside of the bench, that were not on the configuration control, that were not developed for any development process. So we had limited confidence, let's say, on this kind of capability. And this is also something that we are looking at. So it's not only the system of interest, not only the simulator or the system test bench, but also anything involved in the process when it comes to launching the test sequence or retrieving data and analyzing. So these are three concerns, and now going more into the technical aspect. So what has been called in previous presentation fidelity, we have used the verbiage representativity, or making sure we have representative in the simulator and rate. At the end of the day, we are providing, I'm afraid, in the future guidance, also some high-level statements, such as the one you highlighted in the FAA. At this stage, pending availability of better industrial standard or some consensus between authorities, we are at this stage. What we insist on is to make sure that limitations are well known. OPR, open problem reports on the bench or simulator are tracked, analyzed. And particularly when it comes to flight test evaluation or human factor evaluation, they can be presented during the simulation exercise to the team so that they are properly briefed and understand in an easy manner what are the limitations of the bench they are working on a given day. Physical effect on crew and structure is also one aspect where sometimes we have challenges, especially when it comes to validating some safety cases. If a failure condition severity is being assessed, failure condition is defined by the effect on the crew, on the passenger, and also on the aircraft. And so if you use a Mach 8, you must somehow be able to assess whether some loads are being exceeded on some parts of the aircraft. It can be done in real time or post-process during the simulation. That's something that needs to be accounted for and where we sometimes have some challenge. The last bullet point is, or the last point of interest is a topic that is supported by EASA, but also other authorities. Highly integrated systems are hard to test and to ensure that they work as expected, that there is no unintended behavior, and also in terms of making sure that the failure modes are propagating within complex systems in the manner that was expected. And actually, we believe that the use of simulator or integrated test rig is an advantage regards that. And when applicants are coming, or aircraft manufacturers or aircraft manufacturers are coming to us without integrated test bench or advanced simulator, then we are concerned about this aspect. And so, yeah, clearly, it's in the future guidance, we are highlighting this a bit further upon discussions with other authorities. When it comes to the other side of the table, here are some examples of questions or concerns that we have. You talked earlier about tolerances, and some people are asking us, but do we have any standard out there that could help us driving the development of our simulator, or do we have any particular expectations that we should fulfill? So this is why all of these questions we try to address them in the guidance. Likewise, for the development process, people are wondering what is really expected in terms of development process. Can we, are you expect, one typical question is whether we expect some standard used for developing the system of interest, like the ARPs or the AI. They are wondering if we are really expecting it, which is not the case, but indeed, clarifying what is expected in terms of development process, we can see here that there is a need to help applicants to secure the development of their simulation. Another question that comes from time to time is the reuse of existing bench of simulator. For each and every new aircraft or new big modification, there is not necessarily a new development of a bench. So we are trying to introduce some guidance to guide manufacturer on how to reuse capability developed for previous program, giving them some direction to cut. And once you got a steam emulator or an integrated test, an integrated bench that works, then comes the question of knowing which test cases you need to run on this simulator, which test cases you need to run on the real aircraft, and which test cases you can do solely by analysis or desktop analysis. This last aspect is not fully, or is not covered in 25 OOB, but it's covered in other parts of the VTOL guidance, in particular in the modified HQRM method that is proposed, that was also proposed and consulted recently. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into the detail of this guidance material. It's available on our website. I believe the slides will be made available afterwards. It was submitted to public consultation. It stemmed from what we call a certification review item, a CRI, which is a document that we use to establish the certification basis and the means of compliance with the applicant. It's on case-by-case basis, each applicant. It's not necessarily visible. We started from a CRI that we've been using over the last 5 years on almost all new aircraft or rotorcraft certification projects. So we deemed it was mature enough. So when it came to VTOL product and to start having means of compliance for VTOL, we thought it was mature enough to have this CRI transform into some guidance that is published as a means of compliance and that is visible by everyone. So we transformed this CRI into means of compliance published on our website. Before doing that, we went to EuroCAE, with whom we've been working a lot in the last 2-3 years to have means of compliance for VTOL in general. They provided us with some quite interesting feedback, and once this feedback was integrated, we went for publication from June to September. This public consultation is now over, and we are in the process of reviewing all the comments we received. This means of compliance was, I would say, pretty well received. We received lots of very interesting feedback. We are in the process of looking at it. What I can say is that we are accepting a very large number of the comments and suggestions we've received. What is interesting is that at the first stage, the British authority, the UKCA, was involved and provided us some comments. And the second stage, in the public consultation, North American authorities, Transport Canada and FAA commented, provided almost half of the comments, which is quite interesting and which takes a bit of time to process, because as much as practical, we would like to make sure that concerns from other authorities are taken into account practically. Yeah, so I will not detail the guidance. I will not go into the details of the guidance. Maybe just some consideration. I mean, all the all the questions and concerns we have had, we have tried to address them in the 5 different sections. The core of the guidance is about representativity, or what we was called earlier fidelity. Maybe just briefly go over it. For control development process, we are providing a very high-level guidance saying that we expect process plans to be in place. The reason for that is that when it comes to using simulator for compliance demonstration, usually the company has already used the simulator or the test rig for development and integration. So they have already process in place, serve their own purpose. And based on our experience, it's a matter to fulfill these criteria, to demonstrate to us what plans are in place, and explaining that they will be kept being used for the certification phase. Configuration management, these are basic rules about configuration management with particular highlight on the open problem report and limitations, so to make sure that they are properly placed, not only on the physical hardware, but also on the models when it comes to models. Representativity or fidelity, well, we insist on the need to have some validation process, or it's called here verification by analogy with AED79. In terms of defining tolerances or accuracy, we have kept the same approach that we have had with the rotorcraft manufacturer and large aircraft manufacturer in the past years, pointing people to existing CSSSTD as a starting point, because you need somehow to start from somewhere, and asking people to review these tolerances and to use their best engineering judgment to determine whether the proposed tolerances were making sense. For Vitol, it's even more challenging, so we don't have CSSTD available at this stage. However, we believe that, based on what we've seen, it's still a starting point to be considered. It's not the end of the discussion, certainly not, but it can be used to initiate the discussion. And then, yes, for in terms of recognizing the mark in the DOA, in the design organization manual, we are giving some example of artifacts that we expect, just so that people can anticipate them. Normally, it's pretty simple, but we thought it would be helpful to help people anticipating what are our expectations. For automatic batch testing, I will not insist on it further. Yeah. To have a question, I will get it on place. Okay, I will just to summarize the feedback we've received. We've been asked to clarify the scope of the guidance, to explain better how it interfaces with other existing guidance on simulation, and we will work on it. The idea is that it does not take precedence about guidance that would issue for particular requirements. It's a generic guidance, and then on top of that, if you have a specific guidance from another requirement, it should be proposed. We are going to harmonize the way verbiage is being used so that there is no confusion. Some aircraft manufacturer and interest group have made an interesting remark saying that what is being done for Vitol is almost generic to any product, and asking that we consider to make this generic. So once we will be done with Vitol, we will consider trying to find a way to make it generic, either by using an AMC, multi-domain, or certainly we need to find a vehicle for that. That definitely makes sense. Yes, and upon other authority remark, we will enforce further the interest of using simulation means to perform integration tests. And that's pretty much it. We've been drafting this for a couple of half a year now. We've been through the various consultation processes that are necessary. We are assessing the comments. It should be finalized by beginning of this year, and it's only a first step, clearly. We count on projects such as the one that is ongoing with ROX. We are also expecting to learn a lot from the VTOL type certification exercise. And we are also counting on the SAE working group, SG35, that is recently starting and dealing with this topic. And we have also found some interesting activities being done by S18, and safety working group, producing the ARP. They are currently working on the air, or they will soon be working on the air 6276, that for us is already available. It's more for development, but it contains some interesting consideration, and we will stay involved with this group. And that's pretty much it for it. If you have any comments or remarks, I can take them now. Or...
Thank you very much.